All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. I'm the co-founder of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. This is the special Sales Game Changers podcast. It's our office hours Sales Professors Unplugged, where I interview professors of professional sales programs who are helping young adults begin their career in professional sales, typically B2B, B2G. We post these shows every other Thursday. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Give us a thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. So once again, office hours, Sales Professors Unplugged. I'm very excited. I'm talking to Semira Amirpour with the University of Texas at Dallas. And we're going to be talking about how the curriculum that you have for programs, a little more about your university's programs, your relationships with corporate organizations that are looking to support your programs. Now, I first met you at the National Collegiate Sales Competition at Kennesaw State University. We're doing today's interview in September of 2025. That was back in the spring of 2025. And Semira, I was just blown away by the young adults, the students, how poised they were, how professional, how they presented themselves. And it was great to meet you and see the professors who are helping these young adults prepare themselves for great careers.
That really is a great competition. By the way, thank you so much for doing this. We love it. I mean, we take students to these sales competitions, and it's a life-changing experience for many of them. And yes, there's a lot of work that goes to it in order for them to be prepared for that specific, for any of the competitions. But NCSC, of course, is one of the tougher ones, I would say.
Yeah, well, it's a great job on what you're doing because these young adults, they were better than actual selling professionals, that I've been a customer to and that I've worked with. So that's why we're really excited to launch this show to get to know more about the universities that are working with corporate America to train these young adults for great careers in B2B. All right, so tell us a little more about yourself and tell us a little more about your journey to the Center for Professional Sales at the University of Texas in Dallas.
Just like everybody else, I guess no two journeys are exactly the same, and mine may be a little more, I guess, different. I lived in multiple different countries before I actually made it here. So I guess UTD was not the first place that I was in. I actually lived in 4 different countries before I made it here.
Wow.
However, Texas is home for the past 30 some years. And UTD is a very special place. So it took me a little longer than other people maybe to finish up, but that was because of all the traveling, living in different places, which was in itself a fabulous opportunity to learn, to I guess make you who you are at the end of the day when you travel in different places, live different places, learn different cultures, different languages. So that has been a journey. And then, of course, I worked in the industry before I decided to switch to academia, which has been an amazing place for me personally. You are able to see the impact of everything that you do every single day. And it's a very rewarding career to be in, and especially teaching sales, given that many people don't necessarily go to college to become a salesperson or to become a professional salesperson. And our students are no exceptions. So that's the first question I ask every time I go to class. I'm like, do you think you're going to be in sales? And very few of them actually raise their hand, where at the end of the day, after graduation, many of them do end up in sales.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I've been running the Institute for Effective Professional Selling for about 15 years, and people would always say to me, "There's no programs at universities. Why is that? There's 5,000 marketing majors, right?
Yeah.
And there's, SES, Sales Education Foundation, has identified maybe 200 universities that even have a class or a lecture. And of course, we deal with a lot of the universities in the University Sales Center Alliance, which is more rigorous and what they offer. And as I've been posting these office hours, Sales Professors Unplugged shows on places like LinkedIn and Instagram, people are reaching out and saying, I had no idea there was even a school, let alone, 60, 70 that are members of the USCA. So it's great what you're doing. And like I mentioned, the curriculum, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, is right on target,
Yeah.
and the discipline. And your school particularly, it's kind of interesting. You were telling me that your school, the university, started out as a PhD school and then started offering master's and then bachelor's programs. So kind of flip what people might typically think. Give us a little bit of background on that.
So the school was founded by, back then, I guess the founders of the Texas Instrument were looking for qualified candidates and they couldn't find it. So they started a university, they founded a university. So it started as a PhD master's and then they added the undergrad. So yes, it is different than many other schools, which could be the other way around. But given where we are in the middle of a very, very large metroplex, this is a great school. We have a very large student body, and we've only been around for 50 years, which in the life of many universities, that's a very young school.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I worked in a part of my career at Compact Computer
Uh-huh.
in Houston, Texas,
Right,
and they were founded by former Texas Instrument
right.
guys who wanted to create, a more portable laptop. So I knew some of the background, and when you had mentioned the history, I went back and did a little more research, and that was great to see. Well, with that background, obviously AI. So it's interesting, Semira. It's taken us 8 minutes to get to AI, which usually sometimes we get there quicker, sometimes we take a little bit longer. AI, talk about that. How does it play into your curriculum, and what do the students expect?
So for one, we are trying to be on top of our game. Our school or dean is really focusing on having our students be ready for AI jobs, at least be able to use it and utilize it, all that stuff. And so we have started a new certification, a new track on AI for sales just this semester. So we're offering classes for that. But of course, that's very AI focused. But even other classes, I teach the fundamental courses, I teach the advanced sales. And in every single one of those, we try to incorporate AI in some form, some shape. And of course, it's changing so quickly. If anybody thinks that they have the best AI tool or they're utilizing to the fullest potential, I'm not sure if that's necessarily accurate because it's just changing so quickly. One of the things that I am really trying to emphasize in my classes is one, for them to not be afraid to use it. But then at the same time, when they're using it, to be very careful to say, is this giving me the right information? Because to just rely on it and think that whatever AI is giving you the absolute accurate information is not necessarily true. So I try to incorporate it even in simple activities. We work on line of questions that we are going to use for role plays, for example. I have them put the case on AI and then get the questions. And then they're so impressed by the questions that they think this is the best thing. And then I make them do role play solely using those questions. And then very quickly they realize, oh, maybe this is not necessarily the best thing I could have done. And then we go back on it and then I have them review, revise, write their own, make it their own work. So that way they realize that, okay, this could be used as a tool. This could be used as an inspiration, as an assistant, but they mean this is not necessarily. Now, at this stage, for that class, for that assignment, that's what being used. In other stuff, of course, we try to utilize other forms of AI that could be available. The cases that we use that are written with our corporate partners and stuff that includes AI. So again, this is a topic that you cannot ignore. It is not going to go anywhere. It is here to stay. And if that's the case, we are going to make sure that the students are ready and at least comfortable talking about it, using it when they are going to the employers.
So tell us a little more about the curriculum. Tell us about some of the classes that you offer, and what is the expectation of students as they go through your program?
Right. So we don't have a major or a minor, and that was done intentionally because We wanted it to make this inclusive for people to be able to earn their certification from any degree. We have engineers who do a sales certification, which of course there is a huge market for that in, especially in Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have a lot of computer information technology students that they do that. We focus on a lot of tech companies, so that's a really great path for them. We have a sales engineering track that they can get their courses through. And then so that way it provides the opportunity, because if you have a major or a minor, it might be difficult for them to be able to fulfill all the courses that they have to take. So that has worked well. The courses we offer, of course, we offer fundamentals in sales, we have advanced, we have what we call digital prospecting, which is there is a lot of technology that gets used in that class. And then all the AI courses, we have sales negotiation. So all of those courses prepare students for a career in professional sales.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious, what do students expect? So if there's no major or minor, do they know? I ask this question a lot. How many of your students come to the University of Texas at Dallas knowing that they're going to go into sales? As I tell this too, I have a daughter who's a physician assistant. She chose her major the last possible day of her sophomore class, in biobehavioral medicine. She's doing fantastic, but that's a whole separate thing. But I'm just kind of curious,
Right.
yeah, for the students, how do they, you mentioned this before a little bit, but give us a little bit of insight into when do they decide to start taking your classes?
Right. So our student body, very smart kids. We are very, very lucky to have such group of smart students being on campus. Now, the challenge with that is many of them do come to school with a lot of AP courses, a lot of dual credit. So by the time they come in, even though they're very young, they could be sophomores, juniors already, and it's like, and that leaves very little room in order for them to be able to take other courses or elective courses. So for them to take the fundamental course, they have to be the second semester of their sophomore year. So that's the opportunity. But then sometimes I get them and this is their very first semester at UTD. It's because of all those credit that they bring. So they could be only 18, but they're taking a class that is meant to be for their second semester of their sophomore year. So yes, many of them may not come in thinking that they want to do sales, being exposed to the classes, to the material, the stuff that we do, the corporate partners that we have. That's a big one. I mean, they see the opportunities. We try to expose them to those companies as much as possible through different events, guest speakers, stuff that's so for some of them, that's where they realize, oh, maybe. And again, that perception that they have of sales, that's probably the first thing that I have to overcome day one. Because many times they have those perceptions out of the movies that they watched, or so they may not necessarily think that that would be a field for them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because again, as we're talking about this and as we know, you know, sales is the most important position in most companies.
Right.
I used to work for a CEO who said, the last person I'm going to fire is our worst sales professional. So, and we know these companies that are out there, nothing happens until something gets sold. We don't need accountants. We don't need operations. We don't need logistics. We don't need finance if we're not able to sell things into support. So it's good that a lot of the universities you talk to, that they're opening the eyes to the students. I'm just kind of curious. Again, we're talking to Semira Amirpour from University of Texas at Dallas. How does the sales curriculum fit in with the rest of the university? Are they embracing? They must have some level, but how are they embracing what you're doing?
Right. Well, first of all, you stole my line. I was going to say, I always say, nothing happens until somebody starts selling something. And then, of course, the other divisions have no funds to play with if the salespeople don't sell something. But going back to the university, we've been lucky. I mean, the students, their eyes have been open. And then being able to provide different tracks, being able to do a sales concentration, being able to do a sales engineering track. So we have almost every one of our business school majors, except maybe for accounting, that they have some sort of a track that they can take sales courses, because they can also see that it opens up doors. It provides a lot of different opportunities. So that has been good, and it's a good thing. I mean, I have colleagues that they always come to me and they say your sales students are some of the best communicators, some of the best presenters, and I think it's because of the stuff that they all different activities, assignments that we make them do in our sales classes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about the corporate relationships that you have.
Mhm.
And again, we're talking to Semira Amirpour, University of Texas at Dallas. So almost every professor that I interview also has to be selling to corporate America
Right.
to sponsor your programs. And a lot of for people listening for the first time to one of our shows, uh, the companies that are sponsoring these programs and are partnering, they want to hire great
Mhm.
young adults. And as we've mentioned a couple of times, it could save them, if not tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, by hiring the right people, so they don't have to keep, finding new people and getting the right person on board. It's such a great thing. So talk a little bit about the corporate relationships you're trying to establish. What would you tell a business that they may not know that you're trying to educate your students on?
Right. Um, we have some great partners, actually. We're very lucky in terms of the partners that we have that are helping us with the resources in order for us to be able to do what we do. One of the benefits, I call it the benefit of our school, is our students do not graduate, or business students do not graduate until they have done an internship. To me, doing an internship is probably, or having a company provide an internship opportunity is one of the least expensive things that they could do for themselves, is because you're getting somebody as an intern. Yes, you're paying them. Yes, providing an opportunity. Yes, they require management, but it's one of the best way for you to see if that individual is the right fit for the organization, and then also for them to figure out if the organization is the right place for them. This generation is different in a sense that they want to be in a place that, at least it's from my generation, or the way we chose the places that we worked, we wanted it to get a job. This generation is very sensitive to, is this the right environment for me? Do I like the corporate culture? So doing an internship is one of the best ways for both parties to kind of figure out and see if this is the right place for them. So that said, because our students need to do internship, the companies that they come to our campus, um, they have this pool of candidates that they want to do. They have to do this, and they want to join them and be part of organization. At the same time, they go in, they learn what the company is like, what the position is like. So when they are making a decision to actually become a full-time employee, they make a wiser decision, more educated decision, rather than just going in. And the same thing for the companies. They get to look at them and see if this is what they want to do. So um, our students are very, in terms of, again, intellectually very, very smart, very diverse in terms of the skills that they can bring to the table. So we've been lucky, and that's something I always tell the students. Another thing that we do differently a little, our students are the one that they are recruiting these companies. So part of the advanced sales class, one thing that we do, we have a live selling portion. So students have quotas, they have to bring companies, they have dollar value that's, they have to get sponsorships or scholarship money. So that by itself, I mean, that class by itself provides them an opportunity. We run it like a sales organization. We have coaches that they help them out. We have, they're like sales managers that they help them out in the process. And they're able to take that back to a job interview and say, look, these are the stuff that I have done. This was my quota. So companies are, and then they're also looking at the company and say, is this the company that I want to be a part of? Do my colleagues, my classmates want to be part of this company? So they are choosing it, and then kind of going from there in terms of the type of partnership that we have at school. And so far, So good.
Yeah, I want to ask you a little bit of a deeper question to follow up on that. So again, we've been posting the office hours sales professors unplugged. And whenever I meet a new company, because we're so excited about what we see happening at the University of Texas at Dallas and the other universities that we've interviewed. And again, it just fits in so perfectly with the mission of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. Um, what do you hear from students that they want from employers, right?
Hmm.
You kind of alluded to some of the things, but you're much younger than me, but a lot of people in my generation, it's like salary, right? How
Uh-huh.
much am I going to make? And that's still a thing, of course,
Yeah.
obviously. And then benefits maybe, but give a little bit of insight. Oh, so I'll tell universities that we're doing this. I'm sorry, I tell companies that we're doing this. Are you recruiting from universities? And a lot of them are like, not really, or we've thought about it. Now, some that are deep into it, like Gartner and Cvent and
Hmm.
Schneider and all those kind of companies. But there are some that are like, no, we really haven't thought about it. But now that we see the Office Hours Sales Professional Unplugged podcast, Fred, tell us more about the opportunity. So give a little bit of an insight to what are the students, the good ones,
Right.
what are they looking for? And of course, it's different based on where they come from, et cetera. But give a little bit of insight into what you hear from students.
Right. Of course, I don't have like the solid data to give you, but just talking to students, you're right, salary matters, benefit matters. But I think the students also care about the work-life balance. Now, many times it's job of somebody like me in the classroom to say, okay, let's be realistic in terms of what that work-life balance means. Um, you know, Working remote, that's probably the number one thing that I hear. They like to have remote hybrid type of, or at least the ability to choose. Now, I also advise them, and I'm like, look, at the beginning of your career, maybe that's not the best thing for you to do to actually be remote. It's a good thing to be going to the office, learning from your coworkers, learning from your manager, and so on. But of course, we are dealing with a generation that they experience COVID and they're comfortable working, you know, behind the screen and then not necessarily being in the office. Not everybody, but a large portion of them. So I think organizations that they offer some sort of hybrid, some sort of remote, maybe they have an advantage because they care for um, but they also care about, what the company is doing for the society, for the community. Do I get to do, volunteer work and all that stuff? So those are things that they care for. But then at the same time, they want to be in a place that the company invests in them. And what I mean by that, training them properly, kind of providing them opportunity to move up the ladder, or maybe being able to choose different areas that they're more comfortable with. So I think those organizations that they can do that, they can have a better luck recruiting some of the younger generation, especially right out of college.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask you one follow up, and you kind of alluded to this. Uh, I get it. It's the generation that grew up during COVID and pandemic, and
Yeah,
they're used to being at home or in apartments, wherever it might
yeah,
be, and doing a lot of stuff here. I've noticed this a long time ago. One of the challenges with sales is a lot of it requires coaching,
yeah,
especially in your first couple of years.
yeah,
And hopefully, you're being managed and coached by someone who's successful, who's
right.
been there, done that. It's kind of tough sometimes just to do it over a screen. I remember when I was starting, we would meet in an office, you get to see the person move, and then you would go to lunch. And then it's like, let's come back. And I really believe, I hate to say this, that a lot of the young professionals who aren't willing to spend more time in the office are losing out on some of that. I think it's going to be
Right.
a big dilemma.
Right. I mean, you're absolutely right. Even the energy that when you're together with
Yeah.
everybody else is a totally different dynamic than if you're sitting uh, at home, things are going on in the background. However, I think also because of COVID, it made a lot of companies or managers be more comfortable to be able to do remote coaching where before
That's
it
true.
wasn't possible. So maybe that's something that they're thinking of, but I highly, highly encourage the younger generation to at least try at the beginning of their career to go to the office, because sometimes also when you are out of sight, out of mind, so if there is an opportunity for promotion, opportunity for advancement, different positions, you may be forgotten if you're not in the office.
That's a great point. A lot of times you're at
Yeah,
the office, maybe the VP happens to be there that day
that's right.
from your division, and
Exactly.
you have an opportunity to talk to them.
Right.
Before I ask you for your final action step, we really get too deep into this, but can you talk for a second or two about some of the trends that again, we talked about AI in the beginning, of course, that's a
Yeah.
huge one. But, maybe one or two trends that you see emerging in sales education that you've had to put into your curriculum because either your partners are asking or
Yeah.
your organization, your team has said, this is something that we need to spend more time teaching.
Right. I'm not sure if it's necessarily a trend because we started it pretty early, but being able teaching a student how to use a CRM. I think that's something that it's interesting because years ago I had students that I would come to class and I'm like, do you know what the CRM stands for? And they had no idea. I'm like, can you imagine going to a job interview and not knowing these, as a business major? But now students that are taking your classes in every single class, we highly implement CRM, using Salesforce, being able to now, in the fundamental class, they're not necessarily become an expert in using a CRM, but at least they've seen it, they've done things to it, and they come back to me all the time and they say, you know what, I get emails all the time. Thank you for doing that because I went for that job interview and that was the line of discussion. And I was so happy that I knew stuff that I could talk about. Or I got a job and part of onboarding, everybody was struggling and I had no problem being able to do stuff quickly. And my manager was so impressed. So I think CRM has been something that companies are asking for, and we do teach in our curriculum. We try to, even in my fundamental class, when it comes to like prospecting, for example, we try to include prospecting as much as possible using technology, picking up the phone, sending good emails, kind of emphasizing on that. And those are skills that I think they're never going to become outdated in a way. Yes, they evolve, they change, they take different forms, but then at the end of the day, you still have to be able to reach out to customers and not be afraid to do so.
Wow. Well, once again, thank you so much, Semira Amirpour, for being on today's Office Hours Sales Professors Unplugged. I forgot to mention that we transcribe every show that we've ever done. So go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com, salesgamechangerspodcast.com to find the complete transcription to today's show. And of course, you can listen to it again as well. So thanks for your insights. I appreciate it. You've given us so many ideas, so many thoughts on what companies can be doing to more effectively team with universities such as University of Texas at Dallas. Give us one final action step, something specific that you can even say to whomever you want to say it to, sales leaders, sales professionals, the students who are hopefully listening. I know I've made a whole bunch of new LinkedIn connections, after the office hours has come out with students who were at schools, and it's been great to connect with them. Give us an action step, something people should do after listening to the show or reading the transcript right now.
So this is something I tell my students all the time, and this is also for all those maybe younger sales professionals that are out there. Take feedback as a gift. Because if I think of feedback as a gift, then it doesn't have that negative connotation that somebody's giving me feedback. Because feedbacks are not always positive. So, but if I tell students that if I didn't want you to be successful, I wouldn't take the time to give you feedback. So take the feedback and actually do something with it, because that coachability part is probably by far one of the most important thing that the skill that you can develop for yourself, and it can serve you well for years to come. So that you never know, that one piece of feedback could be that gift that's going to keep giving.
That is a great closing action step because sales is there's probably other professions too, but it's definitely a profession where you continually improve, where you
Mhm.
have to continually improve, right? Things change like, the pandemic and now AI and other things. It's 30 years ago, you were the sales professional, you were the expert. And now the
Yep.
customer, of course, can get information on social media or search engine, or now obviously the bots, if you will. So you
Right.
have to adjust. Like, how am I continuing to improve? How am I continuing to add value so that I can be successful in sales?
Right.
There's no guarantee. And the great sales professionals are the ones who are coachable. They're the
Right.
ones who, what's funny, before the pandemic, I used to interview VPs of sales a little bit differently. Now over Zoom, it's kind of changed. But one of the questions I would ask is, what is your superpower, or what are you great
Mhm.
at? And the vast majority would people say, I'm a great listener. And then I would say, okay, well, how do you become a great listener? You ask better questions, you prepare more. And the sales professionals that I have seen continue to progress are the ones that, by being a better listener, you're obviously going to be more coachable. So
Right.
I think that's a great point.
Very good.
So once again, I want to thank Semira Amirpour from University of Texas at Dallas for being on today's Office Hours Sales Professors Unplugged podcast. My name is Fred Diamond.